Best Picture, Art Badgers, Oscars, Best Pictures predictions.
Art Badgers, Oscars, 2020 discussion.
Is there?
The 2020
Do we have
Oscars
a picture of water?
Best Picture Roundtable.
Yeah, dude.
But it's not around.
That's it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does.
Best Picture.
Okay, welcome everyone to Art Badger's Best Picture discussion. My name is Marcus.
I'm Caleb.
I'm Nick.
Now, let's start with what was your guys' favorite movie of 2019?
Probably Parasite for sure.
I think Parasite as well.
Parasite and Little Women, I think, for me are my top
Yeah, Little Women was number one for me.
two.
It was, I thought Parasite was gonna be, but I love Little Women so much.
Let's talk about Parasite then. What do you think? Do we think it has a good chance of winning Best Picture?
I'm a little worried because it's in the same position that Roma was in last year, where they'll pick a movie that we all kind of as a general population agree should be one of the Best Picture winners or the Best Picture winner, and also put it in the Best Foreign Film category, which Roma did and won. But because it did do that,
right, and
it almost detracted from the Academy.
The thing I think is interesting with Parasite though is that even though it was just like a limited theatrical release, it seems like it's more popular culturally than Roma was, and Roma was on Netflix. So it's weird.
So true.
It's weird that it kind of got, there's different levels of popularity there. And something else that's interesting about Parasite, I think, is that it maybe appeals to more people because it has that sort of Hollywood production feel.
Yeah.
For that you don't necessarily see a lot in foreign films. They kind of like, don't do that system. So I think it might have a better chance than Roma if we're comparing the two.
I definitely do too.
I think you're right about that being like the consolation, where they're like, it doesn't have to win Best Picture because we'll just give it foreign language, which is called the international now, I think, right?
Yeah.
So which is good.
Which I think is also dumb because if it's international, that should just include Hollywood. And I think,
True.
I know that Oscars is very specific to the U.S., just like they, like Bollywood has their own as well, and there are different award circuits that people go to that are in different countries that they'll win that, and that will be for France or something.
I think they're doing it because there's a connotation of the word foreign means different and strange.
Because it's the U.S. and the U.S. sucks.
Yeah, so I think international is a better word.
Just talking about the plot of Parasite though, and the story. I mean, it is a masterful achievement. So I think it definitely deserves to win Best Picture. Not saying that other foreign films that were nominated for Best Picture didn't deserve, but I think that this time in particular, if a movie's gonna win Best Picture, that is a traditional foreign film as opposed to an American-made film, then Parasite should do it. I mean, it has this amazing plot structure, amazing script, amazing production design, amazing directors, amazing actors. It has everything. Checks all the boxes.
Well, I think what you were saying, it has sensibilities that everyone all over the world can relate to, right? It's about class. It's about fighting for trying to build yourself up and helping your family.
Right.
And everyone can relate to that. I don't think all these movies have that. Some of them are really specific experiences.
Exactly. We were going to get into, especially with with Joker and Marriage Story as two ones that are very specific and a niche. I feel like you could argue Joker, whatever, we'll get there. Mm-hmm. But Parasite is one. Same with 1917. I feel like they're so broad and universal.
And I like that the Parasite specifically blends genres so well. So
oh my god, yeah!
It's it's this great transition from a comedy, it's like a family comedy, into satire, into suspense thriller, and then into a horror movie, and it's in something else beyond that. So.
I know that we were reading the Parasite script, and even in the first 10 pages, when we're introduced to the family, this is just goes to Bong Joon-ho's style of writing as well. It's they live below the shit. Literally, they live below their own toilet.
Yeah.
They have to step up to go to the toilet, which I think is so smart. Even the filming, the cinematography, the acting, which I'm pissed that almost, and I think nobody in the cast. They won Best Ensemble recently, but nobody in the cast was singly nominated.
Right. Yeah,
which is frustrating.
That is crazy.
I feel like.
Have you guys seen that video of him doing I believe it's Variety, breaking down a scene?
Oh, I haven't.
And it's him breaking down a scene, and it's just amazing. Listening to him talk about the film. There's the scene early on in the film where the friend, the college friend, comes and visits the son, and he's telling him the plot of the film. Go mentor this girl for me. Mm-hmm. But Bong Joon-ho talks about how a truck passing in the background is the thematic break in the scene. That was designed for this truck to like breaks the tension. There's like something moving into the scene, and now the story's moving forward along with it. Is the way he describes it. I'm like, who the fuck thinks of that? That's amazing. You know, that's like inspiring. You know, that it's like so specific. So I like seeing physicality in the theater when you're watching something. Like all the people in the movie were like, you know, moving around.
Yeah, that's
like,
when we
like
it's
this,
all
you know,
Uncut Gems. The tension there was just like
Yeah.
this girl next to me was like turning her hand over and like grabbing me, and she was like, "Oh my god!" And she's like, "I'm sorry," and I was like, "No, it's okay. I'm there too. This is amazing."
Also, in the big, you know, one of my favorite movies of the year, Little Women.
Little Women.
I think we can all agree that it's sort of a shame that it's sort of just isolated in the Best Picture category. What it should have been nominated for a few more things.
Totally should have.
Specifically Best Director, but whatever.
Yeah. Little Women's amazing. It is another masterpiece I didn't expect to see this year. You guys hyped it up a lot. I was a little cautious just because I don't know the story of Little Women, and that's just a me thing. I just never heard about it really. Well, I don't know how.
And there's so many other ones that like me as a person, I did read the book years ago, and then I have seen like the adaptations on the screen. You know, going into it, I was like, oh man, like I'm sure it'll be a refreshing take on this story. You know, it'll be filmed beautifully, but like I did not expect the experience that I had. You know,
crushed it.
I just love it. I think the storytelling quality is amazing. I mean, every one of the characters goes through this incredible growth. Even just like side characters have character arcs that they go through, and these intricate storylines, and the production values are amazing and fun and beautiful. It feels like now because it's so much more realistic in its sensibilities, and it's saying true things about life then and life now, especially.
It's a timeless story.
Yeah.
You're talking about a director who elevates a script like Bong Joon-ho, like Greta Gerwig, like that. You can see her make this movie. Like,
that's what's so fucking frustrating about
it's essential. Like she's essential to the film. Like you can't fucking not nominate her. So that's very annoying.
What I was gonna say is there's a scene in Little Women that I remember watching, and I felt it was incredibly meta. It's a whole sequence where she's like, "How many hoops do I gotta jump through? What makes it okay for you to judge?" Like that was. I don't know if it was intended, but it probably was. Greta Gerwig is a genius. But the meta commentary, especially reflecting on the Oscars now, where it's like, what are the hoops that these women and these people of color have to jump through to be kind of, evaluated evenly? And it blew me away. And it was like, this is such an important scene. This single scene. I mean, the rest of the movie with like Florence Pugh and Saoirse Ronan, they are just.
Amazing.
That's a whole conversation about like who's like the best in the movie. And, like it's very hard because everybody has their solid moment. I think that for me, Florence Pugh was my favorite, specifically just for the scenes in France, specifically when she confronts. Well, I guess that Laurie like surprises her. You know, like that whole scene in the park is beautiful. Yeah. I think I started crying in the scene where Chris Cooper comes down the stairs and listens to Beth play the piano, and it's like that cross section. Yeah. And I think I cried for multiple reasons. One, because contextually in the film, like that is just so sad. Like he misses his daughter so much, and like they've judged him unevenly because he's like sort of a crotchety old rich guy who lives next door, but he's like a human being too. But also just that shot is like it reminded me of like this is like what movies should look like. This is like the things that they can do, like the set. And the lighting and the acting and the colors, like everything was perfect. Yeah. And that continued from through the whole movie, but like I specifically was aware of it from that point on. Then I was like, this is like why people fall in love with filmmaking is shit like this.
That's so true because it's telling at least two stories at the same time. It's him getting back in touch with his family because he lost his kids, right? And he sees parts of his daughter in Beth, and it's Beth kind of finding her art, finding her truth, when she spends her whole life, just like Marmee, just doing everything for her family, and she's finally doing something for herself, and it's these two stories are intertwined with each other. It's fascinating.
I just like that, but we can talk so much about that, like the emotions that we were able to grasp from this in like a period piece. That I don't think I've seen a period piece that I understood the area in which the story was being told more. Like I get it now. Yeah. I understand why these people's lives. Yeah. Like there's so many movies that take place in sort of the Civil War era. Like like compare this movie to like The Patriot. And it's like completely different emotions you get and like understandings of the world in which you live in.
There was a critique early on about the movie that people were having a hard time trying to follow the the time jumps. And I think that's just, it was the one with, like, in hindsight now, it's the most idiotic, I think.
It's so simple, but so beautiful. Like
Yeah, because it is. I mean, like, the temperature of each shot is completely different. It's cold versus warm. It's so obvious. The hairstyle is different, little hairstyle
it's elegant,
suggestions.
just walking into a room, transition.
Florence Pugh's physicalities between being young and older, I thought was, like, that was there. Like, everything was there, and I just think that was just a stupid kind of criticism about the movie,
So, in summary, I think that I want Little Women to win Best Picture. Surely the fact of spite, I want it to be recognized for how amazing it is, and it's certainly one that I would watch again repeatedly.
Yeah, I always want to. Yeah,
that's sort of like a metric that I judge Best Pictures on. Like every year is it has to be something that I watch again, or something I would watch on like a specific occasion, or to evoke a certain emotion. But
I want to go back just to be a part of that family.
Oh, that's so cute.
No, seriously, it was like this warm, fuzzy feeling, and obviously it's tragic. Like there's tragic moments, but they all come together regardless. And there's scenes in that movie that are just I want to be there because I'm there, and I feel happy that they're all there.
It's one
makes me kind of emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies where I'm excited for it to be timeless.
Yeah,
totally. I want to show it to future generations and tell them this is Little Women. This is my favorite adaptation of the books, and it's
sure. And what a simple, but brilliant way to envision that story. Telling it non-linearly. I feel like some people would criticize that as sort of a gimmick, but to tell a story out of order in that way, or work backwards, but I think that it works perfectly in this movie, and it's not obvious or gimmicky.
No, did you guys know that Guillermo del Toro means William the Bull? Guillermo's William, del Toro is the bull.
William of the Bull, right?
Of the Bull.
What are we talking about?
Yes, you're correct.
William of the Bull.
William of the
That's
Bull.
sick.
Moving on to Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, if we're talking about period pieces.
Period pieces of Little Women with 1917 or Once Upon a Time.
In Hollywood.
In Hollywood. Ellipses, Hollywood.
Yeah.
Written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, obviously.
I'm surprised this is in this category, honestly. It was okay. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I think in general, I think we've talked, I'm sort of shocked about how many awards this movie's won. I think they're probably the right awards. I think it's okay for Quentin Tarantino to be recognized as a writer for this movie, even as a director to some extent, but over these other films, I don't know.
Yeah.
The problem, I think that even some of Quentin Tarantino's most seasoned fans just generally consider this as one of his middling movies.
Yeah.
I don't remember people on its release being yeah, it's his best movie yet. But now it seems like people are doing it. They're coming out of the woodwork.
Well, I know that my experience with it has been really weird. It's I saw the movie and I didn't like the movie necessarily, or not that I didn't like the movie. I think it's a fine movie, but it's part of his weird revisionist series where he changes history a little bit, which I think where this film was going, that makes sense because I was not prepared
to see the reality.
Yeah, exactly. And we should have kind of, I guess, guessed that watching it, especially with a lot of what Leonardo DiCaprio's character was going through. His little roles were real roles. They recreated all of it. So
were they really?
Yeah, a lot of what Jack, what's his name, Jack. Leonardo
DiCaprio's character.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a real person, but they used roles.
I think it was several different people. They say this character was these people, which were real characters.
Yeah.
Or real actors.
Yeah, and they're representative of the roles at the time.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
So when I got out of the theater, I was thinking, I talked to you guys. It's it was okay. But as I thought about it more and more, it definitely stuck in my head as it was Quentin Tarantino's maybe not best movie, but his most spiritual and maybe mature movie.
Exactly. The sentiment of the movie, I vibe with. But the actual plot, the structure of it, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because I don't understand why you didn't stick with the story he was telling. This nostalgic retelling of the Hollywood era, his version, or
I think
his perception of the biggest era in Hollywood, right?
I think he did stick with that, but I think ever since I saw it, the way I thought of it was this is a set of vignettes. It's an anthology movie of many stories, but just the same. He doesn't change characters, But in that, it's I don't think that should win Best Picture. It could win Best Direction, but that's just not a Best Picture winner to me.
I don't know, because Pulp Fiction had a similar thing, right? Everything was interwoven, but how you're describing it was vignettes. I mean, he does that a lot with, I think, a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
But this one was more linear for those vignettes. Like, it felt like we were telling the story of Leo DiCaprio, his declining career, and maybe his return to fame, and Brad Pitt going along with him, and then we tacked on this story with Sharon Tate. Like, I don't understand why that was even part of the film, really. And but the only scene that makes it viable is the scene in which she's watching her own film in the theater. I was like, this is nice. Marcus and I were talking about when we left the theater. Like, that was like a nice sentiment. You know, that there's that the people in Hollywood aren't necessarily all evil, right? That they really are just people who enjoy their art. So nice, you know, that was like a nice feeling to have. And then we get this, we get the classic Quentin Tarantino like violence at the end. It felt completely unwarranted in this movie. Like, I don't agree with people who are like, Quentin Tarantino is so violent. Why are his movies so violent for no reason? But I kind of agreed with them in this movie. I didn't understand why the fuck that ending happened.
Not just that, but like every part of it kept changing tone drastically, is what it was too.
Well, I kind of going back to the ending is the way I viewed it. I mean, again, this is a revisionist tale. I mean, we're seeing what he essentially wants to happen. These people died violently, right, because of what they had done to Sharon Tate, which is super incredibly tragic, and like. It blows my mind that, like, I didn't really know the Sharon Tate stories as much, and then when I found out about it, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to see Once Upon a Time. So it's like a violent
meets violence, eye for an eye sort of thing?
Exactly. It's just saying, like, these people did something so bad, like...
Something bad should happen to them.
Let's flip it, yeah, and they did. I mean, like, again, this is the violence for violence sake, which, again, I get what they're going for. But, if we're talking about Best Picture options, it is frustrating to me that this is up there when I feel like movies... maybe more so did deserve it, or like at least acknowledge it.
I can understand it from a production value, or from a production design element. The movie had like an incredible like overall look, and I felt like I was there in like the 70s, and it did feel nostalgic to me, even though I didn't grow up with that sort of cinema. My mother did, and my family watches some of those old programs, so I did grow up with it to some extent. So I guess it did hit home a little bit there. But
maybe that taps into the voters, the Academy voters.
Well, that's what I was going to say, I think that the people who are suddenly on board with this film are the people who it's most nostalgic for, and they're the exact same people who were Quentin Tarantino's most vocal critics, and all of a sudden they are on his side. And I just like, is this the battle you want to win? But then even going down to the performances of the movie, I love Leo DiCaprio, I love Brad Pitt, but I don't really think there was anything crazy remarkable about it. I was nice seeing Leo in sort of a more vulnerable role, like the scene when he's in his trailer yelling at himself in the mirror. I think that's fucking great. Love that scene. It's hilarious. It's emotional. It's, good acting. But for both of them, like, is this their best film? No. Yeah. Is this the best performances? No, I don't think.
I mean, that has been my biggest complaint so far is like the weird Leo draw currently, where it's like he's up for best actor. I don't see that at all, and I know we've kind of had a little bit of disagreements on that, but I don't think he should be nominated. I think there are other people who could fill his role. I think. You could say, well, he's Leo playing this actor who's aging, and it's like, yes, but like Leo has had better roles and performances. I think this role is not like something I want a asterisk next to, or like they should be nominated or anything like that. I think he's great, but he didn't blow my mind by any means. I think his performance in Django Unchained.
Yeah, way better. Yeah, we're gonna nominate him for a Quentin Tarantino thing. Yeah.
I think in essence, it's like this movie was really good, but not the best movie of the year that should be Best Picture. So I just don't.
That's how I feel about a lot of. There's like 3 or 4 movies this year that I'm like, those movies should be up for Best Picture, and they are on this list. But then there's some that I'm like, this is a really weird, like, why'd you put that one in?
What's another one?
Irishman. Mm-hmm. Now, I know everybody was just, never mind. I was going to say something else. Everybody was on the Irishman hype train saying it's a masterpiece and, like, it's his best work yet. And what I acknowledge, similar with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is that it's definitely his most mature movie. And if you want to compare it to Goodfellas, it's definitely like this is, this guy who made Goodfellas, this is his like next stage of life movie. It is slower and it takes its time. But I will say though, although it's 3 hours long, 3.5 hours long, sorry.
Don't get it right.
Yeah. I did not feel like it was that long. And like a lot of people, a lot of people were, saying, "Oh, it's just too long. I don't even want to start it." That was one of me. I was like, I don't know. That seems like way too fucking long for a movie in general. Like 3.5. Okay, I guess like 3 hours is a good. I get that. That's where my cutoff is, unless it's like an old foreign movie, and then I'm like, yes, fucking give me more. But I think The Irishman, the last 45 minutes of that movie are solid and like memorable. But I think it was, to me, by the end of the day, I was just like, the whole movie itself sounded like elevator music, where it was just in the background, and I was just kind of like,
that's the thing.
Listening. Yeah. Was, oh, this is nice. Like, this is a nice movie. Like, but nothing like, wow, that was crazy. Or like, wow, this is so good. It was really just like, yeah, we're going along.
I didn't know what we were talking about. Like, what's the theme? What's the purpose of making this movie? Didn't understand it at all until maybe 4 or 5 minutes in, maybe till the very end. I finally was like, okay, this is sort of being critical on the life that these people have chosen, right? That they've devoted their entire lives to this horrific thing. But the whole time I was like, this just seems like Martin Scorsese was like, I need to make another mob movie, and then let's get the boys back together. And I didn't want it to feel like that. I wanted it to be more meaningful. And I think part of that is that in that length, it needed to be longer. It needed to be a miniseries on HBO, and we needed to be more historical. Needed to follow Jimmy Hoffa's storyline a little bit more directly, see some of his successes beforehand, or how he became him. And mesh those characters together in a more meaningful, drawn-out way. Right. I mean, I know that it was 3.5 hours long, but I felt like I didn't know Jimmy Hoffa and Frank, is Robert De Niro's character, right? I didn't know their relationship or like feel it until we get to the scene where they're at the party, and Jimmy Hoffa talks to Joe Pesci for the first time, which is my favorite scene in the movie. I didn't feel it until then. I was like, okay, I get these guys now. Right. This is sort of like an interesting, intimate relationship between two men. He's his bodyguard. He's like protecting his life, and Jimmy Hoffa's this like crazy flamboyant character that like get out of control.
Who's never learned. Kept saying no. Like,
and it's an interesting piece of history that I think is valid. But it's just like we could have explored it more, and it's sad that it feels half finished at the end of it. It's like so much work to like. I left like going.
It's so crazy that it's so long and it still feels half finished.
I think you can see the scope of it.
I think that's the problem with like, you always want to have a really tight story and like get a lot accomplished with every scene, right? And if it's that long and it still doesn't feel like it's like even accomplished enough, I mean that says something.
The biggest thing I have to say about The Irishman is it comes down to the performances. Like everybody, I think, comparing to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I still think that even Robert De Niro and Al Pacino for me were okay when they think they should have been the stars of the movie. There's moments towards the end of the film with Robert De Niro where he shines for me.
Definitely.
Like that phone call scene. That's a haunting, memorable scene. I love that. It's so quick, so short, but it's like that's like acting right there.
It's so real too.
But the person I thought who did the best in the movie was definitely Joe Pesci.
Definitely.
I thought he was fantastic. I don't exactly know like what it is really. I think it's part of the juxtaposition of his characters he's played in the past versus this one, which is a more quiet, reserved menace. I think that's part of it, but it's also he just seemed so comfortable in that role. Like I believed him, and he didn't have to say anything in a scene to be present. And it was like looks, like slight eye movements, and like it just was masterful from like an acting perspective. I was like, this guy retired? Yeah. Are you kidding? Like, and then you see like the little Netflix like discussion they like posted after the movie, with them, which I would also wish had been longer. They just kind of talked about like two things and then it was done. Anyway, but in that he was like, I didn't even know what the cameras looked like when we started shooting. I didn't know where my eye line was because I'm looking at a camera with 5 different heads, and like it was, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, it doesn't look like that. It looks like you were running the movie. Like if anybody's gonna win Best Supporting Actor, my vote's Joe Pesci.
Yeah,
for sure.
I 100% agree because you had previously mentioned that Joe Pesci, this movie is like his movie. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see. Especially considering like you have Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, so you're thinking like they're gonna do great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Joe Pesci really does. It's so subtle. It's so powerful.
Another thing I was gonna say was that a lot of people, talk about it is monumental, like the technology they use to do like the de-aging.
Oh,
and I think it was a
amazing.
little jarring at first, but like you
Oh,
watch the movie 5 minutes, you're like you don't notice anymore.
Totally.
Except for the scene where you
I
get old
know,
man Robert De
I
Niro,
know.
and he's coming over. He's supposed to be a young spry guy, and he starts kicking the guy. He's
Right.
kicking him like this, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding? We couldn't have reshot that? Oh, that was terrible. He's supposed to be Robert De Niro beating somebody up, and I was like, calm down. Somebody come get your grandpa. Like, this is like,
Yeah, because it's like 30, right? You're supposed to be 30 or something.
yeah,
Like that.
and he's beating
Or
the
40.
guy on the ground.
He
Just
does.
little old man kicks.
It definitely does look like
I feel bad.
because you're totally right. The de-aging I think is one of this movie has some of the best de-aging I've seen in any movie. Five.
It's not as jarring as the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that it's sustained for 3
Star
hours
Wars
is
stuff.
amazing.
Star Wars stuff. Yeah, Star Wars is like this here, and
I
it's
don't.
like Marvel.
That's a
and
whole
then it's-
different thing. But Star Wars de-aging is the absolute worst.
Dude, but I don't care. Okay, I wanted to see Tarkin in Rogue One.
He's the best de-aging they've done. I think he looks great there. He looks like a clay model. Yes.
What else did they do? That's like the big example.
Leia.
What are you talking? They've done Leia
Luke.
multiple times.
Yeah.
They've done Luke multiple times.
Okay. Just like for like an instant, I don't think you have long enough for you to be like,
No.
my god, this is ruining the. Oh, the shot's done.
No, exactly. I saw that and I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I'm like, okay, I'm glad we're out of that.
Oh, don't ever show that to me again.
Yeah. Jesus. Gee.
Okay, so another Irishman being nominated, Joker.
Do we want to see?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a terrible transition. I think that's all we have to say about Irishman.
Yeah.
So what about another big contender, Joker?
Joker. Interesting.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, I did not like this movie when I first saw it. We talked a lot of crap, I think, especially me. So, I think it could be argued for Best Director, but again, Best Picture, I'm not sure about.
Definitely, I think it's too specific about a certain thing. I think it being up for Best Picture is a detriment to other movies that could have been. And I'm not saying that I didn't like The Joker, because actually, I definitely know I enjoyed it more than you guys did. I enjoyed it though, and there's aspects of it that I think are so superb. Like we can all say that Joaquin Phoenix was amazing in it.
Right.
To me, the production design, the grittiness, the grime, the color, the sequences that Todd Phillips had set up, I think are all fascinating and hypnotizing in ways that, no other film really has this really dark sensibility to it all, I think. And it really does stick out in that. But, and this is my but, the script is lacking severely in parts. And when you get to the climax of the movie and you have the Joker say, this is what you get, what's the exact quote? Where it's like,
Get what's fucking coming to you.
well, this is what you get when you mess with like a mentally ill person. You get what's coming to you, or some such like that. Yeah. To me, that was the one moment where I was like, okay, let's take it back a little bit, because that's the thesis of the movie.
That was the one moment?
Well, no. Well, that was like the line of dialogue that it was like, that's like...
That was the first time it made a big statement. For an hour until then, I was bored as hell.
No, I disagree, because I think making that big statement, everything else about that movie made that statement. That line made my eyes roll, because it's like, obviously... This is what the movie's about. You don't have to force feed me in this climactic line of what the movie's about. I thought the whole movie was leading up to something maybe a little bit bigger, but that line specifically, I was like, now this movie had detracted a little bit from me, because I thought saying it out loud was the problem.
To me, this movie, it seemed like there's a disconnect between the cinematographer and the writer. There's some such thing that what I was seeing visually, I was enamored by. I was like, this is great. The bathroom scene, of course, like that lighting, the way it was acted, the way it was framed, the music, the score. It was like that's like a perfect shot. It was amazing. And then even the Gotham itself. Like, it was the first time that I like I said about Little Women, it was the first time that I was like, I understand Gotham. Gotham sucks. Gotham is a bad place. And like the look of it was really interesting because we've never seen Gotham so much in the daytime. Really, I thought was interesting. So I like that part of it. What I just find unacceptable about the movie is that, like that line, there's just multiple moments for me where the movie made my eyes roll. So was it like exactly like made me go like, fuck me, really? You know, it was just a never-ending series of like melodramatic depression. Yeah. And I was like, stop. And then the climax happens. And, you know, Joaquin is, you know, you got that cool train sequence of him, like, running and all the other Jokers in the street, and he's running from the cops, and he's on the show, and I like this Joker. This is a Joker that could kidnap the mayor and hold him for ransom and escape through the sewers, or it's the Joker who could cut his own face off. It's both. Yeah. It's a great Joker. Yeah. And I'm like, God damn it, I hate that I like this. So I definitely don't want that to be Best Picture. The fact that I was like basically like brutalized into like understanding or like connecting with a story. I don't like that feeling at all. So
it felt like a list of like how many reasons can I make to make sure you guys know it's okay that he's a murderer, you know, anarchist, / almost terrorist. I'm gonna make you guys think it's not his fault. No, you know, 100%. It's his mom's fault. He can stalk women and like make his neighbor uncomfortable. It's okay, you know, because he's been through so much. I'm like,
but that was in his head. Wait. You didn't realize it was in his head? I'll show you the scene.
No,
I'll show you the scene.
He was in her living room for real.
Yeah, I know, but it like.
I just want to say that I think your argument is a very Twitter argument.
No, I just think that in the end, the movie doesn't mean anything.
Let me explain real quick. Is that I think higher minds can analyze the movie as there's a certain point in the movie where you know that the first few scenes you're like, oh, he's just had a bad luck. He's he has a mental illness. Where but about the middle way or like say the last third of the movie, you realize you're not supposed to be rooting for this guy. And I think they make that very clear with the actions he takes. I do not think this movie was presented in a way that's like, let's celebrate this deranged thing, which is I think a lot of people had hyped that up as like that's what this movie is, and I
don't think so.
I do. I think that's exactly what people are reacting to it in a way that I disagree. I think that if you're a level-headed person, you can definitely realize movie.
I think I agree with you. That's what people should perceive it as, but I think the movie frames it in such a way that some people tune out. They don't care.
It's under interpretation, which I don't think it should be. Like you were saying, it's more about like. No, I guess you were saying it's more about like, oh, you know, this is what happens when you mess with someone who, you know, is mentally ill. Like that idea is like it's completely not his fault. You're saying like, no, he's an anti-hero. We know for sure we shouldn't be following him.
Anti-hero. He is a villain.
Okay,
a villain. Agree that he's not a likable person, and everything he does about midway on, you're like, that's fucked up. Let's not support this guy. And I think that is how and I think the movie lands that in ways. I don't think like. And that's also why I hated that phrase. That phrase makes it seem like it's all about mental illness when I don't think that's the case.
It's like this is a specific person we're talking
about. Exactly. And I don't think it fueled. I mean, dude, the movie's made. It's like the most profitable movie of all time, right? It's like it made $1 billion off of what, $50 million.
True.
So everybody saw it, and there hasn't been. And I'm not like one of those people who's like, well, there's no fucking riots, so what are these pansy ass bitches like talking about?
Yeah, your voice has changed.
I think that there is the majority of people saw the movie and were like, whoa, like, okay. But I don't think that they're supporting waving around a flag that says Joker's a good guy. Or like, I want to be like the Joker.
I think some people are, but I think that's because the movie is so incredibly divisive. Like, immediately when it came out, like, I've never seen a movie so fucking talked about. And it was interesting because I felt like there was people in each category. Like, I was like in the middle. I was like, this movie's okay. And then there's people who are like, fuck this movie. And then the people who are like, this movie's a masterpiece. And I was like, I can't believe that there's so many people with so many diverse opinions about this movie. Because to me, I was like, I feel like you're either in the middle or you hate it, you know. But there's all sides to it. I think so that shows that it does have merit to be nominated for Best Picture, but I don't think it should win.
even
No,
apart
no,
from
by no
like
means.
the message and everything, I think it's like what I remember you said this last year when we were talking about a movie. Like, I just don't want people looking at this, especially people who are like looking to going into filmmaking or using, trying to find role models in filmmaking. Look at this and think, oh, this is the best picture.
I mean, the
This is
cinematography.
what
I disagree though. Yeah,
Yeah,
cinematography and
God,
acting,
so
you're
good.
definitely gonna look at that movie and be like, I want this. Like this, there's a feeling here. This actor's doing amazing. I don't think you can write it off as like just like a nothing and a toxic movie. I think there's merits to this movie, and I think that's why I find though that the story is really where it falls off, and the dialogue is terrible in parts.
Yeah.
But I think to me, Todd Phillips has a great chance at winning for Best Director. Maybe not the person I want to win, but he's up there. I mean, Robert Eggers is up there as well, which I know he got snubbed, which is like
That's a whole
pain
other
in the
video.
ass. But see, like even just talking about the Joker, we spent like 10 minutes talking about it because it is so crazy and like people have varying opinions. You know?
It has made an impact on society. That's for goddamn sure.
And that's what the scary thing is, right? Because that's what the Academy looks for too.
Right.
Is what movies can make a huge impact.
You know what I want to talk about?
Well,
I think,
you would wish they would look for sort of that in some ways, but I think sometimes they don't.
No, totally. But it's an element, I do believe.
I think complete opposite. What is that? It makes me think of like Marriage Story for whatever reason. Because it's like, for that, it's the opposite to me. I think the direction was good, but the story is amazing. And the performances are amazing.
I think it's fair, yeah.
So I think...
I guess we're talking about Marriage Story.
Marriage Story.
So, for Marriage Story, for me, this is another one where I guess I sort of feel in the middle. I think I lean more towards like really really liking, and it's something that I want to see again. For me, the story falls a little flat in terms of dialogue, which is so nitpicky. But there's because the scenes are so integral. Acting is like such an incredible tool in this movie. It all is in every goddamn movie, but specifically for this movie, these are like some very bare bones scenes. Where it's like two people having a conversation, they're having an argument. So it's like it has to be perfect. And there's some scenes that aren't, and I don't think it's necessarily the actors' faults. I don't think it's Adam Driver or Scott Johansson's fault or anybody else. I think that it comes down to the writing in some sections, in that Noah Baumbach is trying to tell a very specific story, but also try to generalize it. And I think that's there's merit in that. It's a worthy effort, but I think that there's some scenes that don't nail it. I mean, if we're gonna be nitpicky, like people. I've pointed this out on Twitter, and I think people are they're unfair for the most part. But the fight scene, right? Like when they fight after divorce, I think that scene, the dialogue in sections turns into this sort of broad thing when it's like this needs to be an argument that's about these two people. And I would think that the better scene is the scene that precedes that scene with the lawyers talking for the couple, right? Like that scene is great. Like the direction, acting, that scene's perfect. Writing, perfect. But then there's sort of like the big climactic scenes, I think, let the movie down, which is weird. But overall, I think it's like an incredibly important story. And I did enjoy it. And I think that, if anything, it was more of a commentary on divorce in society that I wasn't aware of, right? That I learned more about the process and like the emotional effect of it. As opposed to like specifically these characters, which I think also might be sort of a weird disconnect. Because I did like the people, I did like the characters, and they were specific. But in the end, I don't think that necessarily resonated with me more than like the overall thing of divorce, right?
I think that generality about divorce is interesting too, because it made me think like I do have. Like, I really wanted to like these characters, but I only liked, like, 80% of them. Like, Adam Driver's character is this, like, for the most part, he's saying these things are very realistic. I believe his performance makes sense. But he's also this, like, incredible narcissist who just doesn't care.
She's like a real person.
And same thing with Scarlett Johansson. Like, her character is, like, she's very genuine in what she's doing. She's causing a lot of problems for him, but only because of what he caused during their marriage. Except we didn't see the stuff during the marriage, So it's like they both have this vindictive quality, and I think I really did want to see more of each of them. I think what you're saying about the dialogue as well, it's like, it's because it's so real. I think, is what it is. Like, this is exactly what a conversation would be like between two people getting a divorce on the phone. They'd be yelling at each other, saying these almost incoherent things, just bringing up random things. Same thing, a father and son going out to, on Halloween. This is like real conversations.
Yeah, when you get into an argument with somebody, you're not going to be like, I'm just mad at you for this very specific reason. Like, there's also other things in there, very general things that like, well, you always do this, which might be a little broad. Yeah. Right? I think, and I really hate when, just going back to Twitter, Twitter attacked that scene.
They're like, I've seen better acting scenes in my theater class.
Yeah, entirely out of context.
Yeah.
And I think that's my problem too. It's like when people say like, okay, the dialogue and the acting in this is so bad. But I disagree entirely because I also think that this script is like one of the best scripts this year. I don't think there's anything really kind of... I remember walking out of the movie and just being like... I cried at this movie twice because I've been on one side of this situation where I have had my family members go through a custody battle, which is what this movie ends up becoming, right? And I think what's fascinating is, like you said, you don't really get to see their past relationship. Yeah. But you also get to see how they react to how their lawyers kind of push things. Yeah. They don't want, the lawyers to necessarily speak for them, but they're also so afraid with how the lawyers presented how it's going to go that they don't really stop anything.
It's interesting to see two characters that are like trying to be good people. Yeah. But they're put in like a horrific situation in which they can't be good people. Like they can't be nice. Like society's like, we have to be nice. We have to be good people.
What's something really defining about this movie, which really fascinates me, is that there's the affair, which is very glossed over. Totally. And I loved it.
I don't like that. It's like cavalierly brought up in the fight, though.
It's hinted at. It's hinted at in multiple scenes, and I think it is brought up. But the thing is, that's not what the movie's about. The movie isn't about the affair.
But I'm saying that if you were in that situation, I feel like you would attack that specifically. Totally. Yeah. So, and it's like the number one thing. I wanted something more there.
Well, then I think these characters, and again, it goes back to like this is a very real story. I think it's acted excellently. I think the direction is also fairly good. It's just that's not what their argument was about. Totally. Their argument wasn't about the affair. It was they were different people on different paths of their life. The affair was just the sprinkle on top that really kicked everything going.
I think that's the tough thing. Up their lives.
I think that's the tough thing, though.
We're going to argue about this till fucking Christmas.
The true qualities of the film are what make it like too much about real life and not cinema, I think. When we spend this whole sequence about like Halloween and stuff, like this isn't even about their divorce anymore.
Too specific, I just think there wasn't enough of a balance between specificity and generalization, in terms of like making it a movie that is about this. Is it about marriage? Is it about divorce? Is it about Charlie and I think
it's about exactly. But it is about all.
It isn't all those things. It isn't.
I think it is. That's why I think everyone should see.
It is kind of about each of them.
That's why I think
it should be about all of them.
Everyone should see this movie for sure. Whether you think it should be Best Picture or not, this is one of the ones on the list you have to see. It's amazing.
Yeah. And don't let other people sway your opinion on it.
And it'll just tell you about life and humanity and marriage and divorce and love.
Yeah, this movie, until I saw Little Women, this was my number 2. Under Parasite, so it's my favorite movies of the year because I was crying. I don't have a single bad thing to say about the movie. I thought it flowed excellently, and I thought it was also creative in how it did kind of do the backstory of each character in that beginning sequence. And going back to the Halloween sequence, again, if we're going to be just a little bit nitpicky, I thought that was not just a real scene for being real and detracting. I thought it was the power dynamic of everything. The kid was so fucking tired because he only had gone with his mom.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Yeah,
and like his dad was like, no, we got to do this because the dad feels like he's losing.
I've been that kid, too. So, I think also there's another thing. It's like, if you've lived through this in any way, like you were saying, like you were like custody battle, like my parents divorced, so it's like, this is another movie where if you've lived through it, it resonates with you in different ways, So, and I think that's important to talk about divorce because like so many people go through it and are affected by it. Children grow up.
And if you haven't, you'll learn so much from the movie too. Right. That's why everyone should see it.
So we only have a few minutes left. We're gonna try to cover Ford v Ferrari 1917 and Jojo Rabbit as fast as possible. We'll start with Ford v Ferrari.
So Ford v Ferrari. James Mangold. I learned so much about an interesting story that I'm glad I know about, but beyond, and I was more emotionally invested than I thought I was going to be in that movie. By the end of it, but I don't understand why it's in the Best Picture category. To be frank, so. Okay, moving on. Let's
1917.
1917, or do you want to do Jojo?
Jojo Rabbit, yes.
You want to do Jojo Rabbit first? Okay. Jojo Rabbit to me is Taika Waititi's most serious movie. I think there's definitely comedy in it, but I think it's one of probably the more important stories that are on this list. Obviously, it's a satire, what have you. But one of the most fascinating things about the movie to me is that a lot of the critics who didn't like the movie were saying it didn't take things seriously. Like, we're dealing with the Holocaust, we're dealing with World War II, we're dealing with Nazis. But to me, and this kind of goes back to Babe the Pig and how that movie was all about the pig's perspective and everything's down low and stuff like that. This whole movie is about this kid's perception, and there is this whimsy and this need to be part of a club, which is becoming a Nazi, and like there's all these really exciting things that this kid is like. He doesn't understand the world of that he lives in. Everybody, propaganda, all these things have been force-fed to him that he's like, yeah, I'm a Nazi, and like we have to kill Jews. There's all these aspects to it.
And they don't shy away from that aspect of it. Like they're talking about like murdering Jews all the time,
exactly.
And they're being incredibly racist and prejudiced.
Totally. And then when it hits the serious moments, I know I was bawling my eyes out, or I was like, holy shit, like we're going there. I think this is also Taika Waititi's darkest movie, I said it's the most serious movie, but like it is such a lovely movie that I'm really curious when it does come time for Best Picture, because I think out of all the movies, I think Jojo Rabbit's the secret kind of favorite.
Wild card,
that I think might pull a Green Book if
would be wild.
If it did, and I'd be totally okay if Jojo Rabbit won Best Picture.
Same, yeah. Honestly, I've never. We have another war movie on this list, and so in the canon of war films, Jojo Rabbit is the first movie that made me, like, sitting watching the movie, just realize, like, how ridiculous it all is. I know, I was so certain in watching that movie. I was like humans are stupid. They're ridiculous. We do these horrible things to each other, and we have these like insane beliefs that we to tell people, and like it made me like question like humanity in general. And I was like, this is like a silly movie, and it's making me feel this, So I just think it's like so important, and like it's another movie watching it that you're like, I wish I could be in this. Yeah. I wish I could make movies like this. Everything about it.
It was fun. It was dramatic. The script is great.
And the production design of it, like it's Taika Waititi, like it is, and like whatever aspect that is, like he just captures it effortlessly.
He's definitely able to take innocence and put it through the ringer of like very intense tragedies, especially with Hunt for the Wilder People, even Thor Ragnarok in the sense of like just losing everything. Jojo Rabbit does the exact same thing, and he's a master at it. One of my things that I like to equate the experience of Jojo Rabbit is. Jojo himself, like, he's like, I'm gonna kill Jews, and like, it's all these kind of like, okay, buddy, like, do you know what you're actually saying? And you can pull that today, especially when we're talking about like Iran, and it's like, I remember just being on Facebook for 2 fucking seconds. So he's like, let's just nuke Iran, and it's like you don't understand the ramifications of what you're saying, and it's because these people, much like I feel like Americans in this kind of sense, are born desensitized to like what's actually happening around them. And so I just think that Jojo Rabbit is timeless. I think it will always be timeless. And I think it's one of, maybe not my favorite Taika Waititi film, but I think it's probably his most important.
Yeah, and he just does he does the shockingly emotional thing so well. Mm-hmm. Like you like the theme, hits you at a certain point in his films, and like I think this is one like the strongest example of that. Totally. So I think it's maybe overshadowed by some of these other films, which is definitely unfortunate. But like like you said, like if it won, So.
All right, let's move on to the movie that I know that we kind of all have interesting opinions about as well. 1917, which for a while, especially on Gold Derby, it was The Irishman or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood were the top picks, and then 1917 came out and like it just
immediately won the Golden Globes.
Yeah, it was just like boom. Here's directing. Here's cinematography. Like it's getting all these things. How do you guys feel?
It's interesting you talk about Jojo Rabbit in comparison to other war movies, because when I saw the trailer for 1917, I was like, that looks like every war movie. They're going
And guess
across
what, Marcus?
the front line. They're looking for their brother. They're going through, and then I saw it, and it was broadly still true. Honestly,
it's such a shame. I don't want to not like this movie because there is so clear that there's so much effort that went into filming it, into the production in general, to framing all these sequences. And that there was a thoughtful, story in place for this movie, but at the end of the day, I couldn't help but almost laugh at how much it just seemed like we were running through the paces of every other war film, and to some extent, for the majority of the film, I felt like I was watching a cutscene in a video game, and I was like, when do I get to play? Like that was the sense I got from it. Yeah. And then it also, I think, just in general, like to sum up my feelings about it, I feel like the story that is present in the film is so generic. I don't want to use that word, but like it's like a generic story, and it's not important enough to warrant the way it was filmed, or it makes it seem like this is like the most important day for these people. I think that's the sense it's supposed to invoke. Like, this is the most important mission of their lives. But what it ends up invoking for me is like, this is just another day in war. This is what war is like, and it glorifies war and battle and like the deaths of these poor innocent kids in a way that I think is wrong. I'm like, this isn't a normal day in the life of a soldier. Like, it shouldn't be presented like this. So it just irks me. I don't know. Yeah, and I don't like that it's like being heralded at the moment.
Yeah. Well, it looked really beautiful. But I think the fact that we don't even learn. No, sorry for the spoilers, but we don't even learn that he has like a wife and kids till like literally the last shot when he pulls out a picture. I was like, we don't know anything about this character, which means the main character could be anybody. Because we didn't learn anything about him the whole movie. That's not good for a movie.
I think that's the point.
That means there's no internal story here. It's everything is just content.
We're supposed to like feel that his actions are representative of his character, right? That like that he's doing the heroic, courageous thing, even though it's not his brother that he's saving. He's still doing it, and it's supposed to be valid. It's heroic in that sense.
It just means there's half a story to me. Like there's only the exterior. There's no change. There's no internal story here.
It's definitely not deep.
That's the stuff. Yeah, that's the stuff that makes you cry. That's the stuff that makes you feel it.
It's just, I think the thing it has
it's missing
going for it is, I talked to you guys about this before. It's like the humanity. It has the most like humanity out of these movies. I'm going to put in quotes because I don't even necessarily agree with that, but I see what Mendes was going for. It really is like some moments that I really enjoy is every time the guy got back up. Every time the main character, got to his feet, it really felt like half the time his feet were just taking him. Like he wouldn't even control the top half of his body.
Yeah, just pushing through.
His legs were just like, you gotta go. You have to do this. You have to save these people.
He's pushing past soldiers.
He's pushing
people.
It's so funny. It's like, just go around. Just go around. It's
I just, to me, it's like, I see, and like, I think this has looking at the list, this has the strongest possibility of kind of being that central score that the Academy is looking for 1917, which is like, it's definitely not the best movie. The one take thing had happened in Birdman, and I think it was more successful in Birdman than it was in this.
Because that story is warrants that sort of filmmaking technique. Yeah. It's like this. Does this elevate the story?
Well, no, I see where Sam Mendes was going for. It is a very special day. This guy has to fucking make it across this place. It's like 6 miles. Shouldn't be that hard. And then he gets trapped in all these different things that are preventing him from getting there. So I get the ticking. The single shot is a ticking clock.
Yeah.
There's another ticking clock in the movie as well. But the single shot is like, get the fuck up. Keep going. What are you doing? Why are you down? Like, we're waiting. We're waiting for you to go.
And I think it's also maybe some of the visceral quality was lost or something, because like, in the beginning I felt that I felt pressure, and I felt like I was like holding my breath while I was watching. And it was also because we had these sequences where he like stuck his hand in that dead guy, and it was like horrible, and he's crawling over bodies, and I'm like, I'm really getting into this. And then we had that rat scene, which is, I think that's great. If the whole movie was the rat scene, that'd be great, because that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think maybe it's just because the world opened up that it felt like it was walk 3 steps, turn, walk 3 steps, gotta hit my mark.
It's
and
because
it became more of like a film as opposed to like an experience.
I think that's when you realize you're not learning anything about the characters. That's the point where we've left the first act, but we still don't know who these people are or why they're like doing this or what their past is. Why does he not want to commit to?
And the biggest disconnect, like when we were talking about it, is like that when we saw it, we didn't give a shit when that kid died. But you said that you did feel something when you saw him. You know, I literally like watching the movie. I like threw my hands up. I was like, oh, he's dead.
Well, no, because I didn't think it was glorified. Like you had mentioned earlier that you thought that like the whole thing was glorified, and I disagree because I think it was framed in a way that everything is important. So like it wasn't just going through dead bodies for the sake of dead bodies. We were actually seeing World War I, and we don't have a whole lot of World War I movies.
That's the glory. Watch it.
It's true. But what I'm saying though is that like when he died, I mean, like obviously like the dramatic death, people can say he's like we've seen it before. Yes, but I wasn't expecting it because I thought that a story was two people trying to get there, and so like
that's the trailer talking.
Exactly though. But like, why would I want to know any more than the trailer? You know, so like when I got in there, I was like, "Oh fuck! Like this guy's dead," and I like that it was one. No, I like that it was one scene. You know, I like that it was the one shot because we're watching this guy, and you can see, and that's what I do love that scene because you see him get wider and wider. He's losing blood. You're like, holy shit, this guy is dying in front of me.
Yeah.
And I thought it landed. I know you guys don't.
I just think that like if we're comparing a scene like that, then like the scene with Vin Diesel and Private Ryan, it's like I like that better. You know?
I felt like
it
was
just,
letter. Since the movie is essentially like a first draft of a script, like it's just an outline of like it's gonna be this next sequence, and then it'll be this, and then it'll be like, ooh, this is gonna look really, really cool as a visual, but with no story behind it.
Great sequences.
So,
they're great sequences.
Yeah, they really are. It's just like you need a story to connect them. So like when you have, but then when the character dies as a result of just one of them, which is what if there's a dogfight and then the plane comes at them when it's crashing?
Saying that is
and then that's the result of the character dying?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Cool, but it's like,
no,
what?
that's so original.
There's no
like,
reason behind it besides just, whoa,
it
that
just
looks
seems
cool.
Like, yeah, we did
There's
that
no
sequence.
reason.
And then we gotta tack the story on top of it.
I like it. I like, you know, like, I don't think the movie was disappointing. Like, I remember walking out of the movie and being like, wow, I wish there was a little bit more to that, because I totally agree that there's definitely, it's all face value. The screenplay, from what I've read, is really intricate, and it's like 140 pages, when I thought it would be like 60 pages, because there's almost like no talking.
Yeah.
But there is, I guess, a lot, now that I think about it, they're talking the entire time they're going through the trenches and stuff like that.
But they literally sound like NPCs in a video game.
Yeah.
They're like, we gotta get up that hill. Oh, I hope the Jerry's don't come.
I'm
hungry.
The thing I do like about it is how simple it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, the guy was like, "Hey, you have to get over here. Your brother's over there. If you don't, 1,600 people are gonna die."
Go.
The kid's like, "Okay," and then his friend's like, "Wait. Shouldn't we like talk about this?" He's like, "Fuck no, we gotta save all these people."
That's it. The first 15 minutes of that movie, great, and then it just peters out from there.
It's like Marriage Story is what it is, because the dialogue, they're talking about random stuff, really not anything that pertains to the plot, but it's actually real. Like, it's believable, I think. It's like, this is what they would be doing.
I think it's less.
It's very realistic in a way, but that's not really cinematic. It probably shouldn't be in a film, though, is the problem.
Yeah, I feel so bad saying all this because, we have that dedication at the end that it's like, to like Sam Mendes' grandfather, I think. It's
he told stories. Yeah.
They told stories about his experience. I'm like, obviously this is rooted in truth somewhere. I can understand that this would resonate with people who have been in war, who are veterans of the world wars in general. So,
yeah,
I get it. But I don't think it does a service to like the war genre. And if it was supposed to be like not just another addition to the war genre, it was supposed to be like sort of like a revolutionary change to the war genre and like the way it was shot. I just think it didn't do that. It just made it seem like background noise to the war genre.
I think it is a crowning achievement in directing, especially for Mendes. But
what
for
a
him,
bitch to film!
I think he did an amazing job. But just the story isn't one of a Best Picture, but the movie is very well made,
and that's
very well made.
I think this is like that movie that's probably going to be up there because a lot of what I've kind of heard is that a lot of people are picking The Irishman and Once Upon a Time for Best Picture, but because that's probably going to be a split vote, they go down there the second choice. And
that is 1917 is the Green Book of this year.
It's everyone's second choice. Oh no,
that's exactly what I think.
Oh no.
because I think
it's the vanilla choice.
it is 100% the vanilla
So
choice.
what are your guys' actual picks for what do you think? So that's what you think will win? Or?
So yeah, like I guess we're going into that. What do I think is going to win out of all of them? 1917 is my choice. That I think will win, not my preference to win.
Who do you think will win? Marcus.
I don't know. It's hard. I think, because my thought was like 1917, Ford Ferrari, Joker, Once Upon a Time. As long as it's not any of those, I'm okay with it.
Well, no, who do you will win? Who will win? The Academy's voting.
You're probably right. 1917.
You're choosing 1917?
I want to choose 1917 for the will win, but for the sake of devil's advocate, I think this is equally up there. I think that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood could win as well.
Oh, yeah?
And I will be mad.
I was thinking Irishman, like, because remember when, for another Scorsese movie, Leo was like up for an Oscar, and they were like, probably because of all his work up until now. I was thinking maybe that for Scorsese, like he deserves to.
It's like a movie late. Yeah. I just think that he'll maybe be Best Director. I just don't think that the film will win. Oh, they do love them some Scorsese.
They do. Marcus, choose who you want to win for Best Picture.
For sure, it's Little Women.
Little Women.
I would be so happy, not just because it's my favorite movie, but because I think it like deserves an Oscar, and it's a whole not just Greta Gerwig, but like a whole ensemble and crew that all deserve to be honored for their achievement, and it would be amazing just for our whole community of Hollywood and filmmaking.
Nick?
That's really interesting because I was going to say Parasite, but I think I want Little Women to win more. I think my argument is that I think that Parasite winning Best Picture would make a great statement in terms of the filmmaking capabilities, the story capabilities, and like watchability of international films in current American cinema. Like I think that we should watch more. We should engage more with them, but I think Little Women deserves the recognition for what it is, for every aspect of the film. And every aspect of the film, to me, is like an A+.
Caleb?
The one I want to win because I think it's a masterpiece through and through, and there's nothing I didn't like about it, and that I think it will be on my shelf forever, and it's Parasite. Little Women's obviously a close second by nobody comes close to that. But I think Parasite being as important, I think Little Women's obviously important as well, but I think that Parasite for me is the one that I want to win.
I think there's a lot of movies here that if they won, I'd be so happy because that community would get recognition and be given more respect, I think. And that's true for Parasite, Little Women, and Marriage Story, maybe even Jojo Rabbit as well. I think if any of them won, I would be super happy.
I agree. And I think a lot of great films this year, in general, like that came out. I think it was a slow start to the year, and that the only good film that came out at the beginning of this year was this bad boy for a long time. And then suddenly we hit all these, and I think that this is like a really solid Best Picture list this year.
100% agree. Thank you for watching Art Badger. We will be having a new video soon. Comment with your opinions. It's okay if you disagree with us. Let us know. In fact, I would like to talk to people who disagree with us.
And let us know what else you want us to discuss in this format, if anything.
What about other awards? Like, we only talked about Best Director, Best Picture. I mean, there are a lot of other things that need to be said about other Oscars this year. So what do you think about that?
Or who is snubbed? Who do we think is snubbed for Best Picture?
Yeah. If you like any other videos about cinema, science fiction, all that kind of stuff, we do a lot of different types of videos. Check out other stuff on Art Badger.
Thank you.